for this next phase of the testnet is we're going to do another test of our upgrade module. We just did 2 tweaks to the current upgrade module code. One is to remove the feature to call like an automated script because that really wasn't working. So we just removed it under the principle that we want this really to be well designed and sort of not include features that we don't think will be used or should be used.
Right.
And we also added a feature that for the next upgrade, if the binary that it contains the upgrade handler for the currently planned upgrade starts before the block height or block time is reached, that binary won't run. So
cool.
Basically, the old binary will stop running once you hit the upgrade height or time, and the new binary won't run until you reach it. And we did sort of, Ethan and
making it dummy proof, basically.
Yeah, the idea is to make it dummy proof, and
good.
And Ethan and I did a bit of back and forth, and we decided just to do that based on the currently scheduled upgrade. Not do it for all the history of all the upgrades that could have occurred. So it's not 100% dummy proof. Like if you, I don't know, like if you tried to sync from Genesis using a new binary and you'd already done 3 upgrades, you know, it might try to do it and then you just be out of consensus. But you would know that, you know.
Is it worth doing it for the last upgrade from the 0.41? Because obviously you can sync from Genesis to the last upgrade height using 0.40. That works okay. And as soon as you hit the last upgrade height, you need to be running 0.41. But you can do it just using those 2 versions. So even if we just backported it for the last upgrade, that should allow people to sync from 0, right?
Well, I mean, you could still do this. This is just in terms of the binary, the binary, the dummy proofness around that. Just that it's really just to make it so that it's hard to mess up, like in the hour or 2 before the upgrade actually happens, and like, that you if you're eager to do it,
get trigger happy, and then
and you accidentally copy it over and overwrite your old binary or something, you're like, if that happened, the new binary would just panic and say, hey, it's too early, and then you would. But it's
a nice feature. I like that.
Yeah. So that's Ethan merged those 2 things in, and the next step that we have to do is just link up that fork of the Cosmos SDK with Regen Ledger, push out v.50 or v.05. And the one other thing I wanted to add into this next release is just some pretty minimal feature change. There was a feature I had been working on a while back, and an almost completed pull request that just kind of got superseded by other more urgent things. And it's just for the ability to just publish an SHA 256 hash on the blockchain of some data that you have, plus possibly a URL where that data is stored, so that you can use the blockchain as the timestamping service. There's very minimal functionality for doing that. So I'm intending to get that merged in by the end of the week, and that will be our sort of next release. It has some additional feature, you know, so it's not just a trivial upgrade. And then the other thing is there's this Cosmos Upgrade Manager that we've been working on, which is basically a daemon that runs your XRND or GaiaD binary as a subprocess, and then looks for the messages that an upgrade is required, kills the binary, starts the new binary, and it could optionally download binaries based on a URL plus hash stored on the chain if you enable that functionality. So we have that, you know, mostly specified. I think most of the code is at least mostly there. But we haven't sort of battle tested, and we're intending to have that tested internally by the time of the upgrade, so that so people, if they want, they can try that approach of the automated upgrade.
Nice. Does the 0.5 release include the upgrades to Cosmos SDK to 0.36?
No, it doesn't include any upgrades to the Cosmos SDK, and Initially, we had been planning to do an upgrade to 0.36 of the Cosmos SDK. And Ethan and I started working on that, but just looking at the number of changes that they've made,
it's significant.
It wasn't our sort of battle to just automate that upgrade. And then what we have discussed with what we have been talking about, and I guess we haven't discussed it in much detail, but we have been discussing with Tendermint, the Tendermint team, about making some upstream changes that will make it easier for them to do these in-place upgrades for the Cosmos SDK. So our intention is to try to work with the Cosmos Tendermint team to make future upgrades, like from up to like 0.38 or 0.39, make that so that it's automated rather than trying to do it for 0.36, which really wasn't in mind. So yeah, instead we're sticking with our old Cosmos SDK version. Our current plan is then once we've tested this, we're gonna try to get merged upstream, and then we're gonna end this testnet and do another testnet from Genesis with 0.36 or 0.37.
Cool. Nice.
Welcome to someone who's calling in.
Hey, yeah, this is Will Zoll calling in from the road.
Oh, hey, Will. Welcome. So I have a couple questions. I don't know if this is an appropriate venue, but just sort of tracking the overall buzz and chatter on Cosmos VIP and like this new upgrade that the Cosmos Hub is going through, and the interrelationship between that work and the SDK and our both, and key management and the upgrade module. I'm just sort of curious, kind of to just get a pattern level step back, like about synchronizing. I mean, is the strategy that we determined and are currently sort of executing through still feel right on, or not? I know I have the sense probably that Joe and Ethan, besides me, have been spending the most time in that room. So I have the sense that you probably haven't been.
Yeah,
much.
it's been a while since I haven't been tracking the conversations in Cosmos VIP.
Ethan, you're on mute. So
I see a lot of I talk from most of my chats with the VIP. There's a few channels that hang out in the VIP lounge there. There's a lot of noise sometimes to skim through it, but I definitely like to see it they're worrying about there. I think there are two big things I've seen, besides the whole upgrade planning, which seems to be a headache. Yeah, and the downtime, in place of downtime. I think I mentioned a few times, I think we really need to say like, this is hard, it's too hard, it's not necessarily hard, right? Like there are cases where you need this hardness, and you need this thing because already is a breaking changes, you have to break everything. And maybe if there's a 6 is such a breaking change to have to, they should make smaller changes they can do this. It should be only a last resort issue. It shouldn't be so hard. So I think we can use it it should be an opportunity to promote. I put little stuff out there, but I think you're a great promoter, Gregory. So maybe some other people can also start plugging stuff or have articles about it, and they kind of plug that. And I don't know what Joe thinks of that one, that like a bit more like as another way, like sure, this way you do it this way because it's what you have, and it's a major breaking change. But for the future, let's try to make it easier. And so it's one thing that harp on, and the other thing that kept coming up a lot by a few vocal people is the distribution of rewards, how validators aren't making money and the validators are losing money, especially smaller ones. And why not just validate to, delegate to 0% commission people and make more money? So there's a lot of complaint ICF as like this arbiter. So I think that's an interesting thing about, think about that and look at that as a token economics of our chain, and how validators are paid in Regen, and make sure it works out fair for them as well.
I do think we need to do a deep round on considering our token economics again, and involving, Joe, you and the Chorus team and Chris and other folks. I would like at this stage, I really, I totally resonate with that, Ethan, that we should be launching, when we hit mainnet, we have some time, but when we hit mainnet, we should be aggressively pursuing the token economic model that really makes the most sense for a healthy validator pool, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's not just for mainnet, it's also for promoting, like, getting more people, like having that and promoting yourself, and not just like a one-off thing. And like as we go about the process of doing that, look at those concerns, and some of them are just whining sometimes, and some of them
I mean,
are,
a lot of it's just whining.
no,
A lot of it is just whining.
But there are very valid concerns. I think saying, "Hey, ICF, give me more money," is kind of complaining, but the fact is, why does it work that way? And I think honestly, I'll say my short thing here. They basically said, okay, we're just gonna leave it to the market to decide, right? And the market, of course, will then naturally tend to a few larger validators who can self-stake, put 0% commissions or 5% commissions and profit off that. So the market leads to a small number of larger validators because it's more efficient scale, obviously, right? That's obvious. And so maybe you have like 5, 10 big validators is what the market will coalesce to. Then there's complaint with decentralization. So now the ICF is supposed to come in as this magic hand to fix everything, right? But ICF is not supposed to be this magic hand of governance, and people don't want governance to fix everything. So it's like this anti-government thing, as well as the market side, plus the ICF is meant to fix everything. So I think looking at the ICF to fix stuff is wrong. I mean, they can do a little help. So I think either you have an organization with a large amount of tokens that is explicitly controlled by governance and designed to balance everything, like the welfare state, quote unquote, right? Is actively never delegated to large validators, only small validators, blah, blah. You have this explicitly in their thing. Or you decide an algorithm, which is allowed to be profitable for small validators.
Which is like the idea of a variable reward, some sort of variable reward algorithm. That
I've worked that idea a whole lot, and that only works if you have some sort of identity, that you cannot just split your tokens into validators.
Yeah, which I've heard people basically say at this stage is sort of an impossibility.
No,
like you could spend a lot of energy and maybe get there, but right now there's no way to do that.
It's impossibility of the Cosmos SDK and the Cosmos SDK dev team, the philosophy of them. It's not technical impossibility. It's impossibility of them to decide to do it. It's not actually that hard to build. It's more of an ideological blockage. Honestly, the code is not that hard compared to what they've built so far. They built really hard stuff, and it's not that hard to change. Like the current delegation staking system is really complex, and this is not such a big change. What I think a simpler way, like, so that's the algorithm of like the curves is one way of doing it. I know that Asmodat has been posting some stuff he wants to do that all validators should be rewarded equally, for example.
Go validate on Polkadot then.
Yeah, so he's been posting stuff like that too, right? And there's this thing. And other people posting from Polkadot, and some of the people from, I think, bHarvest or Forable have posted Polkadot stuff. So a lot of people looking at other networks and referring to things from other networks have been doing, right? So
which is cool. Which is cool. It's like take the best thing. I mean, I have to admit, at the beginning of I definitely skew more towards my baseline logic and thinking how this is most likely to work is something more like you get a grant and you can expect, it's like a grant in the sense of like you have the right to get some sort of fixed rate for providing some service for a validator. Probably makes a lot of economic sense as long as the accountability is there. Right. And, however, so, I mean, I'm open to that. I'm also, it's not sort of like how we're currently set up. So there may be more subtle changes that we would consider first. Because that totally transforms what a token is and what it means and how it's used in the system. Kind of back to where we initially had thought. The challenge though is raising, like using a token sale to raise money with that model is less logical to me, at least. Less logical what people are buying if they're taking the risk to buy your token. It makes a lot of sense in the sort of more, the way that Cosmos Hub's token economics work. It's logical to buy the token as rights to, get block rewards and earn, fees, etc. It's just super logical from that perspective. And I want to maintain some direct line of logic in our token economics. I don't want it to not make sense to people. or us.
So I agree. And so I think I was saying is technically it's not that hard an issue. The more complex issue is the economics behind it. The theory behind it.
It's definitely an economic problem, not a technical problem.
And sure. Not just saying how do you make sure they find an algorithm that is more fair, that gets more distribution, that gives us fixed rewards, that actually works validators, but then also gives token value. And so they link a bunch of stuff out, right? And so they make it very market-based. And so like the larger the win, and it's cool. And like this creates a pressure to consume more tokens, because if you have more tokens, then it's more valuable to run a validator. So then it leads to monopoly, but also leads to upward pressure on the price, and it works that way. It's not favoring decentralization. Markets not favor decentralization. Markets favor centralization in a handful of monopolies or powerful businesses, right? Not one. They favor usually a handful.
A handful. It's an oligopoly. I mean, and it's
5 to 10. Most
with a long tail that still provides
large corporations. They can compete
with a long tail that still provides opportunity for people to. And I just want to note, Ethan, that there's something significantly like we in our thinking about this and significant work on the token economics. The one answer, and I think it's multifaceted, but one thing that's vastly different from Regen Ledger's economics and the Cosmos Hub's economics is our community staking pool. So 35% of the tokens on launch will be non-transferable and only and allocated to essentially DAO managed addresses that and 5% of that 35% goes to the Regen Foundation, and they will have a legal mandate to stake in a particular way for network health, right? And the other DAOs similarly will be required to make their own definition of what their sort of staking philosophy is going to be. And then like, we're not going to necessarily dictate that, but we're going to basically say, like, if you want to create a DAO to do staking, you have to create a contract with the network about how that's going to go. And, what percentage are you staking to a validator that your DAO runs? What percentage are you staking out and maybe distributing, et cetera, et cetera. And so there is sort of like a pretty significant portion of the tokens, a Byzantine veto of the tokens, that will be managed in this sort of like cooperative commons, maybe a little bit more social democrat kind of way than just like the pure market economy. So we sort of have an anchor of some sort, for good or bad.
So I think
maybe that helps. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think that's a good solution. I said one of the things is ICF is kind of seen as that, but it's not the mandate to do that, right? The mandate is to invest in the cause works. I think having that 35% with clear mandates to not maximize profit, but to caretake the community validators to ensure an inclusive community, to ensure aligned vision of community, and then say they would not all just stick their money on the top 3 validators. They're not all going to go for, the BP validator that, Beyond Petroleum, like British Petroleum validator is not going to get there. Maybe we'll align more towards people that with the vision, and having some sort of mandate there, which is saying your goal of these community stakers is not to maximize return.
To maximize security.
Yeah, exactly.
The security, diversity, and really like resilience, I think.
Yeah.
Would it be something to consider then for whether it's the Regen Foundation's tokens in their DAO to essentially allocate them to validators essentially in a diverse way to maximize the number of sustainable validators that there are? Obviously, it's open to Sybil unless you do things like KYC for those validators, but then that can just be a term of you get a delegation from the Regen Foundation. If
that's right,
if
Joe.
Your identity is verifiable, yeah.
So the idea is at what we're currently obliged to in what we've expressed in our economics paper and white paper and our SAFT agreements for selling tokens. What we've committed to is essentially the following. There's 35% that's what we're calling the community staking pool. 5% of that is managed by the Regen Foundation DAO, which is sort of like a DAO legal entity hybrid, which has really clear, like, we're staking for community benefit. Okay, the other 30% is managed by the foundation until people basically lobby or request, apply to be granted, you know, sort of like these constituency token allocations around a multi-organization DAO. And we have sort of some criteria about who can apply and how that decision will be made, but we're wanting to engage more with the validators to make that super clear, to basically like codify how that decision gets made, et cetera, et cetera. There's an outline, but it needs to be more detailed. Now, those DAOs will also need, as part of the things that we already said would be required, those DAOs will essentially have to have a staking policy that is considered to be in network health, considering network health. Okay, so that's one piece. The other piece that we've been saying is that of that 30% at the beginning, we're not expecting, you know, all of that 30% to be immediately grabbed by DAOs, because we got to build a community and we're not going to just distribute it willy-nilly. There's going to be a process. I expect that, but we are going to launch with it staked. And so that's where what you're talking about, which is there will need to be sort of a genesis pre-allocation to validators, which part of the thing that we're doing is generating data about who can operate a secure validator, who's into the community, who's professional enough to be trusted with those allocations. But on Genesis, we basically have the ability to have like grants of these tokens in a very distributed way that we can guarantee to high performing members of our testnet, basically. And so that's another piece of just sort of like the automated balancing that can take place.
Yeah.
At the beginning. And then, but everybody needs to understand that as a constituency DAO is incorporated and is an on-chain entity, they will be managing, and they may redelegate.
But they redelegate from a position of those tokens being delegated in the first place, rather than delegating from scratch.
They may redelegate, or they may keep the delegations, and you know, we would leave that up to the DAO, basically.
Yeah.
So that, hopefully that's helpful context in terms of just like how this is all, like, that's like the social side. Like, we didn't do that, didn't require any changing of the you know, slashing or token reward code. That was us trying to fix it from sort of like more like what we're all agreeing to as a community at the beginning, and how that happens sort of more in the human side of things. So go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's any more on that, I did want to go over what our kind of short-term plan is for this upgrade.
Oh, great, yeah. Sorry to go on a sidetrack.
Yeah, so just the, you know, really short-term things. I mentioned the code that we're working on to kind of wrap up and get tested by the end of this week, or at a very minimum before the upgrade time. We are planning to do a poll on Telegram sometime later today. We're intending to send it out to help, so that people can vote on what is the preferred upgrade day. We are currently thinking that the preferred upgrade day would either be Wednesday or Thursday next week, or Monday or Tuesday of the following week. And we were thinking we were going to send out a poll with the same time every day, and just poll on the day. And the time, we had a bit of a conversation before the call as to what the best time to do the upgrade would be. And last time we did it at 10 a.m. Eastern time, which ended up being basically 2300 or 11 p.m. in Korea, in China. So for people in Asia, it was, you know, since it took a bit longer and we or actually we might have even done it at 11 a.m. Which was midnight. It ended up being quite inconvenient for people in Asia. So, and it seems like actually the center of gravity of our validator community is actually in Europe. So we also don't want to inconvenience people in Europe. So
yeah,
it seems like a good compromise is maybe to move it a bit further, like a bit earlier. So maybe doing it so that it's 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. in Korea, which would be
sort of 6 a.m. East Pacific, is it, or thereabouts?
Would be, say we did it at 9. If we did it at 9 p.m. in Korea, that would be 8 p.m. in China. That would be 2 p.m. in Spain, and that would be 8 a.m. here on the East Coast of the U.S. And it would be 5 a.m. in the West Coast of the U.S. And I think we have one validator on the U.S. West Coast.
Two actually. Mira Z-Take is also
okay.
On the West Coast.
So we have a couple on the U.S. West Coast that would inconvenience them, quite a bit to have to get up at 5 a.m. They could run an automatic process. I'm not sure what, it's good to have some people from Asia, representing the call, but, right now when we're doing the call now is just terrible time. Yeah. 2 a.m. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts, Joe.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and I will reach out on the Telegram group, but to see, I had to have a list of where validators are located. I don't know if we have that data necessarily to date. How much of that data we have? Obviously, because it makes sense to also use that to dictate the time of the community call as well.